so how many of you listen to rap music of any kind? Maybe just a song, like a top hit, you like an old song, one artist, one album, anything like that? Well, I would probably guess that most of you do, but how many of you actually know the origin of hip hop and where it really comes from? The birthplace and the culture behind it? Because hip hop is a very important music and very important culture, and it holds roots bigger than just the music. It's a movement for social justice, it's an activism, and it served as a voice for many people in terrible situations. And it's really significant to know about the history and the origins of hip hop because so many people listen to it. It is one of the most listened to music of today. And for me personally, I really wanted to do this topic because I've loved hip hop my whole life. I remember the first song I ever heard was Dr. Dre. After that, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and like I was raised on that. So in my speech, I'm going to speak about the 4 main elements of hip hop, the history of the culture, as well as its importance. Because to understand rap today, you must understand hip hop yesterday. So most people know rap music, but not where it comes from, and the 4 pillars.
Is it not working?
It's having a little bit of trouble.
You might just, I think I need to purchase a new one. I'll do that.
So most people know about rap music, but not where it comes from, and the 4 pillars of hip hop, and those are b-boying, DJing, MCing, and graffiti. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get first into the first one, and it's breakdancing. And breakdancing really originally comes from James Brown. He released a song, and in the video, he began doing all of these acrobatic moves, and the kids in New York really took that and they kind of imitated it and evolved it to add acrobatic dance moves, and it became a way for gangs and neighborhoods in New York to battle each other and earn respect between people. The second pillar is DJing. So in New York, in the 70s and 80s, block parties were a huge thing, and more of James Brown influence. He used beat breaks on his songs Funky Drummer and Sex Machine, and DJs loved these beat breaks so much that they wanted to get people dancing to it, so they figured out that if they used 2 turntables and they have the same record on both turntables, they could play the beat break on one and then keep it going when they switch to the other turntable. And then from there, DJs like DJ Kool Herc, who is known as the very first DJ in rap history, and others like Grandmaster Flash, who we see right here, they started scratching, and it became more of a sport, DJing and trying to keep the crowd entertained. And with keeping the crowd entertained, MCs were born. So MCing was originally, it came from taking the Jamaican jockeying, as it's called, which is chanting over beats, and the MCs use this as a way to keep the crowd alive and hyped. But eventually, as we all know, MCs and rappers started writing full songs, full albums, and selling records. And then the last pillar of hip hop is graffiti. Because it played a big role in the culture at the time. Graffiti is a form of expression through art, and it's also a form of rebellion. And these 4 pillars are the basis of how it was originated, but they set up the foundation for growth in the culture, because hip hop turned into a movement for social activism and change. Hip hop comes from very poor minority communities, especially in the New York boroughs. It's mostly Black and Latino communities that had first created hip hop. And the sounds and art are heavily influenced by the lifestyle of poor Blacks. So for example, I have a quote by Tupac where you can really see this emotion, and he says, I see no changes. I wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Should I blast myself? I'm tired of being poor and even worse, I'm black. My stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purse to snatch. So you can see that type of desperation that Tupac felt, as well as many of the other people in the hip hop culture and communities. And really, because of this, it emerged as a voice for black people. They really didn't have any other access to any outlets, so they used hip hop culture as a form to express themselves. It's really birthed on ingenuity because they didn't have materials. So they weren't able to buy instruments and create beats. That's why they took the two turntables and started sampling music like that. And they didn't have materials to paint nice paintings and get their feelings out that way, so they had to take to the city's walls. And I have another lyric talking about hip-hop culture. It's from Common. He says, "Our dreams we say aloud like speakerphones just to keep them on. It's like a colored song that keeps keeping on. That's why I write freedom songs." So just talking about a little bit about why he does it and why hip-hop is for the people. And many artists have come along, like this is Public Enemy. They begin to talk about political activism and civil rights. And they talk about gang violence as well as drug abuse in their communities to reflect how people really feel and everything that they're going through. But over time, hip hop has evolved and many changes have happened, but the basis is still the same. So like nowadays, for example, Kendrick Lamar is one of the biggest culture bearers of hip hop still, with making authentic music from struggle and things of that nature. And as it's grown, it's become very popular, and almost every single type of music now has incorporated some type of hip hop, whether it be the beat breaks or samples or interpolation. Those type of elements have been part of all type of hip hop, but with the growing popularity, appropriation has become a big thing in hip hop with artists like Iggy Azalea, who appropriate hip hop culture in ways that they use it for personal benefit. Iggy Azalea, when she blew up on the scene, people were okay with her being a white female rapper, because normally that's not a very common thing in hip hop, but people weren't against it. But when they realized that she was just using hip hop as a way to make money and that she didn't actually love the culture and that she was actually trying to copy and mimic certain stereotypes of what hip hop culture is and use it to a negative way, then people started to rebel against her and they didn't really support her anymore. And then also now in hip hop, there's things that a lot of hip hop heads call culture vultures, and basically what that is that people exploit the culture for their own benefit. An example, like ESPN, lately they just always tweet about Drake and other popular artists. ESPN has nothing to do with hip hop culture. They're just doing that just because they know that people listen to it. So it's not really like true culture. They're just using it for their own personal benefit. But still, hip hop culture holds the same values, and many of our respected artists like J. Cole nowadays still give authentic, original ideas and like to explain their story. And then in conclusion, hip hop has a really big history and it has affected lives forever. And then I just wanted to show a little clip of Tupac speaking a little bit about hip hop.
It's like,
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
when you're born, usually you're born to a dynasty or an empire, right? You're born like as a junior, or you know, following in your father's footsteps. You know, so your father, you did this, or your father, or your grandfather, you did this, or you got this, or family heirlooms. There's none of that in the outer city. I call it outer city because we left out. There's nothing. We don't get any family heirlooms, the family crest, all that stuff that you think is so important was meaningless. Because I mean, come on. Our family crest was cotton. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, it's like the only thing we can really leave behind is culture, is music, you know, and dignity and determination. That's what we have. So it's like,
So like, just like you were saying, they didn't have anything, and then the culture was all that they could do to express themselves. That's it.